automobile companies convert them into autonomous and then run them on the campus. This is the only campus in India where an autonomous vehicle is running for the last close to 1.5 years. 2023 August we started, 5,000 kilometers it already ran. From the main entrance up to the hostels, it keeps on making rounds, okay, and without any driver. In fact, right now, I can say very recently we have tested a 100 kilogram payload capacity drone, and we have set a target by March 31st to have a 200 kilogram payload capacity drone. Why we are talking of 200 kilogram? Because we call it as an air ambulance, so that you will be able to lift a patient from a remote village along with an attendant and with all the instrumentation that is needed to check the vitals, and these vitals are continuously being transmitted to the hospital where the patient is being taken, so that the doctor knows under what conditions the patient is entering into the hospital. So this is a kind of research that goes on at IIT Hyderabad and many other areas too. Healthcare is another area where there is a lot of work happening. We do a lot of interesting programs collaborating with other hospitals. For example, with LV Prasad Eye Hospital, we have an interesting master's program, which we call it as MTech in Ophthalmic Engineering. Again, possibly the first time in the country, where the LV Prasad doctors teach the anatomy, physiology of the eye. We teach lasers and optics. At the end of 2 years, the student is a laser expert for an eye care industry. So such kind of programs. We even have a program where we call it as medical device innovation, where the student spends 4 months in a hospital. This is a master's program, MTech program. At the end of 4 months, talking to the patients and doctors, the student picks up a problem. At the end of 2 years, the student has a medical device as a prototype in his hand, okay, or her hand. So this is something, again, very unique. So all these are, I would say, some of the very interesting innovations that are happening at IIT Hyderabad. I think I will stop here so that there is time for others to speak. There are more slides, but that gives you a glimpse. I will possibly send you a small document to all of you on the dais and off the dais so that you get some idea. But what is important, friends, it's time that every one of us have been working in silos. It's time, if India has to be Viksit Bharat, working together, encouraging innovations is the only way forward. So we look forward to the PANIIT team and Wheels Global and all the CII sitting here and Madam also to see what we can do together. In fact, we also have adopted about 10 villages nearby. A lot of work is happening by IIT faculty members. We give funding to our faculty when they say, I want to bring out a technology which can be implemented in a village nearby. So that is the kind of growth that we would like to have. I strongly believe when we grow, people around us also should grow, and that's a true inclusive growth. And let's all work towards that inclusive growth where we come together, collaborate together, and grow together. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, sir, for such an insightful address. The major driving force behind this event is PANIIT Wheels Global. Wheels is a social impact arm initiated by, but not limited to, PANIIT community that goes by the tagline of improving the lives in rural India by technology-enabled solutions. To tell us more about PANIIT Wheels, I invite Mr. Ramnath S. Mani, co-chair of Wheels Global Foundation, India South Chapter, on the dais. Please, sir.
Good morning to all. I am Ramnath Mani, co-chair. Hello, can you hear me well? Okay, so I am Ramnath Mani, co-chair of Wheels Global Foundation, India South. Actually, today I'm going to just give you a talk, a very small glimpse of what we do and how we started. I think since time is short, I'm going to make it a very short presentation, just running on some of the things that we are doing. And I'm open to any question after the session. Actually, our inspiration, it was started in 2006 when during one of the PANIIT conferences we had, Dr. Abdul Kalam, who was presiding at that time, he said, it's all very fine. I mean, the presentations are very good. You're all doing great job. But what are you doing for the nation? I mean, there are so many other things that you can do for the nation. What exactly are you doing? Are you doing something very big? Take the big problems that are there, especially in the rural area, and start something. And that was the inspiration with which we started. And this IIT Global Wheels was actually started at that time by a group of IITians who got together, mostly in the US and later from India. So actually the entire word wheels, which was coined by us, stands for the 6 pillars of actually development and service to society. They start with water for W, H for health, education, energy, livelihood, and sustainability. These are the 6 areas in which we really operate, and we try to get as much technology as possible on the ground to the rural areas. The mission is, of course, to transform the lives of 20% of the rural, or we call it actually Rurban, because it's both rural and it's the extension into the urban areas also. So which is about 180 to maybe it's about 200 million now, and through technology and enabled solutions. Our mission is to engage and mobilize the IITians all over the world and help them actually in scaling up technology-based solutions for the rural world. And we actually, the model is we don't do anything on our own as such. What we do is we enable NGOs and other organizations which are already on the ground doing projects, and there are many NGOs who are doing some excellent projects in the country. Yet they are unable to reach the masses, they are unable to scale, and they are stuck in their own area. So that is where we step in. We bring in technology, we bring in actually the knowledge from the IITians, we bring in actually technology from other parts of the world, and we are able to actually help these NGOs to scale up. Therefore, we partner with some of these NGOs. So essentially, how do we add value? We add value by leveraging basically technology and deep business experience. I mean, that's what we bring to the table. And of course, we use the IIT's system, the IIT system, the alumni, actually the people who are in the government. I mean, a lot of IITians are in the government here. We have one here itself. So we use the power of this network to do what we want to do for the country. So Wheels organization, I mean, it's a very simple organization. We have got a board of trustees, we've got a board, then the advisory board. Actually, Ram Ramanan, who is sitting in front of me, he is in the board in the US. So, so he's there. And then, of course, we have India, because it's all largely concentrated for India. What we can give back to the people in India. Therefore, there's a pretty big organization here which actually covers the entire country. So these are some of the partners with whom we work, and we use the IIT brand, network, contacts, etc. But these are some of the people with whom we work to actually reach the masses. I won't get into this particular. Essentially, I mean, it is, what are the challenges we face, etc. So actually, our whole thing is actually transformational value to our 3 stakeholders: alumni, IIT system, and the country. I mean, this is what we are aiming at, and we are wanting to reach to the masses. Some of the initiatives, these are some of the initiatives which we are doing. Basically, I mean, as you can see, we have listed out on water, health, energy, education, livelihood, sustainability. We are in all the areas where we are partnering with actually relevant NGOs and taking it to the rural part. Now I'll go into a very few, couple of cases. One is the rural telemedicine platform. We have created a platform which is actually headed by Dr. Raj Shah from the US. And we have gone to the villages. We are working with the governments. In fact, we are working with, I think, Maharashtra. We are working with UP. We are working with some of these states where, we are going out into the rural areas. We have a device, a very small device, which is used by the local, need not be a doctor, but must have some knowledge about, health. And we go there, and they can take out data And actually, all the data is transmitted to a central location somewhere, the nearest city, and then they get all the diagnosis back and all the actions that are to be taken. Therefore, the village people don't have to go at all to any city or anywhere. Everything comes to them. So this is one of the very, very, I think advanced IoT technology we are using, and this is working pretty well in many of the states. And we would like to see if we can do it somewhere here in Andhra Pradesh also. We'll be very happy. Telangana, sorry. Very sorry. So, and actually, this is actually another one which actually is being used for health domain. This is basically, both for newborn children as well as sanitary pads. Both we are creating, and actually practically at no value. For the women as such. We have another project, School in a Box, where we go to the schools, especially in villages where there is no form of education practically feasible. So we have got School in a Box, some sort of a platform, some sort of a device which doesn't need an internet. It can be used straight away. At the local point, and then we actually go and teach the children, and they are able to reach some level of competence. Some of the malnutrition things which we are doing, actually, as I said, we use technology for using some of the breastfeeding and other things that really, as I said, sanitary pads, etc., which really affect women as such. And we are going out, very widely into all the states and doing work with them. Then we've got something called spoken tutorials. The spoken tutorial is an initiative where, number one, we go and we've got courses already established where any children who don't go to school or school dropouts in villages, we try to actually engage them and educate them up to a level using a technology of spoken tutorials where we can actually, impart to them up to a level where they can go and work in an IT company and, do coding, do basic coding, not the real coding, or BPOs. Those type of establishments, they can go and work. Rural Shows is another initiative of ours where actually we are going to the villages, teaching or you can say, semi-villages, where we go and teach the young students, young girls, young people who, again, don't complete school. And we actually take them to a level and where they can operate and work with any BPOs. So here also, People Shore is another, it's an organization with whom we work. They create infrastructure in the villages. They bring actually foreign companies, BPOs, etc. there. They train the people in that area and put them there for work. Then we have doing an Aravalli Smart Village Development Program. Here actually it's a completely, you can say, we are taking any village and doing completely, transforming the village into what we call a smart village. We have heard of smart cities a lot, but we are doing a complete, reforming the village into a smart village, which encompasses everything, whether it is energy, whether it is education, whether it is water. We take across the board all the areas and work on it. Of course, the unique, I have not covered every project, but these are some of the projects which we are doing and at scale. And our unique leadership position is that, IIT is a trusted brand. If we go and say that, look, as an IIT organization we get access to technology and innovation, and we have the business expertise to execute it. All of them are IITians, and mostly, at least 95%. We have taken some experts in particular areas, like Dr. Raj Shah. He's not an IITian, but he's committed to do what we want to do. So today, we are a handful of people who are doing it, both in the US and India. But what if we can get more and more people to join this bandwagon with us and actually go and contribute to the society? We have 140 million people here, so definitely, we have a huge scope to go and actually operate in the villages and really bring up the lives of people. So I think, as IIT Wheels Global, we will be extremely happy to work with CII. We are already doing some work with CII. We'll be happy to work with IIT Hyderabad. We'll be happy to work with the entire IIT system. And no, of course, I mean, we are always available. We are happy to work with the government concerned, Telangana government. So, we'll be very happy to work. Thank you. And we can be contacted. Any questions you have, you can always address it to me later. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. I think in general, all of us at IITs believe that the greatest form of learning is when you can implement it to give it back to the community and humanity. I now kindly request Professor B.J. Rao, Vice Chancellor, University of Hyderabad, to deliver a special address to the August gathering.
Very good morning to all of you. Murthy Garu, Madam Collector Garu, Mani Garu, Deshpande Garu, and all of you here. It's a very beautiful morning. I see three important components coming together: CII and PAN-IIT Alumni Association in an active campus such as IIT Hyderabad. So these three components are intersecting here and discussing about technology for Bharat tomorrow. So it's a beautiful topic. I only wish the hall were full with younger people who are the future of the country. When I talk of Bharat, I always see Bharat as a model for the world. When Bharat can solve it, all solutions are available for the world, because Bharat is such a complex entity. And when technology comes in, Bharat, of course, welcomes it, and Bharat needs it, because technology is the only way where Bharat can come out of struggling economy components, come out of it at scale, and become Vikasit. This is the model where technology has to come in and solve many problems in Bharat and solve it at scale. When this happens, we would certainly become Vikasit. But when we do this, there is an internal inversion here. Whenever technology comes, there is a damaging footprint on the environment, and sustainability becomes bigger than the technology itself. This Bharat must be acutely aware of, because we are such a country where environmental impacts are extremely acute in its impact levels in countries such as Bharat. And therefore, when we do technology, we must be constantly aware of what is its footprint on our people and how to alleviate the footprint damaging effect so that people benefit from it in its holistic manner. Therefore, there is an area where we need to be working very, very intensely, and the area is the intersection of society science, society technology, society sustainability, where society is the fulcrum point, science, technology, sustainability become the spokes. And in this intersection, there are a lot of pain points that we must address as we go along. And I think we are not doing enough work in that intersection area where we look at the details of how everything impacts the common livelihood of people in India. This is a very complex area, and I think partnerships such as IIT Hyderabad and University of Hyderabad, etc., should be doing a lot more work here so that we can pin down on the details of who does what in this network of changes. If we can pin down the drivers, pin down the passengers in this complexity, I think we will be able to tell that when we become Vikasit, these are the pain points we have to work along and solve. This is an interesting area. I think let us partner together and see how we can provide solutions for Bharat, which become solutions for the world. This is only one point that I want to emphasize, and I'm extremely thrilled whenever I come to Hyderabad, IIT Hyderabad, which I think is a nice jewel in the crown for the system, and in a short time you have hit many, many high points. I think this is the model for the rest of the country in terms of how new institutions must chart its path. So I think there are very interesting areas that this kind of group should be discussing about in a holistic manner, and try to see if we can pin down on important solutions as we move forward. I only wish that there were a lot more young students who are thinking about this problem, because ultimately, when we leave the country at 4th or 3rd position, we would have left with enough resources for the country to manage. But finally, the game plan is managing people. Managing people so that the pain is reduced when progress happens. This is where we need a lot more participation by younger people to look at the pain points of the system as it grows. Thank you very much, and I wish all the best.
Thank you so much, sir. I think all of us will agree that for our country to be holistically Viksit, we must also be aware of all the negative impacts of the technological advancements that we keep doing. Today's other component, as sir rightly said, is Confederation of Indian Industry, CII, that works to create a sustained environment conducive to the development of India, partnering industry, government and civil society through advisory and consultative process. I would now like to request Mr. Sanjeev Deshpande, convener, CII Telangana, IT, DTN Startup Panel and Transition as Business Advisor, India, and APAC Entity Data Business Solutions to kindly deliver the keynote address. Please, sir.
Good morning, everybody. I would like to thank Professor Mahendra Kumar Madhavan Murthy Garu, Ramnath Esmani, BJ Rao Garu, and it's a pleasure to be on the dais with the Honorable Collector, Valuri Kranti, and thanks Mudrika for giving us this opportunity. I've been the convener for the CII, IT, startup, and the digital transformation panel for the last 3 years. But as a profession, I'm in the IT business consulting for last 25 years, and prior to that I was in manufacturing. For last 11 odd years I was heading our company Business Solutions, which has become Business AI Solutions now in the India and APAC. We work with multiple industries. We actually do consulting around Industry 4.0. We have presence in the most automated country in the world, which is South Korea, to probably the most non-automated country in the world as well. And experienced how the countries, our headquarters is in Japan, have transformed, leveraging the technology. And also I would like to point out one of the best points made about the sustainability. What Industry 4.0, the fascination for Industry 4.0 actually resulted in impacting the environment, and how Industry 5.0 is actually correcting the same thing. But when we talk in the context of India, we have companies and manufacturing units that are operating all over the spectrum, maybe from Industry 3.0 to Industry 5.0. I think probably everybody is aware, but right from the steam engines to electricity to computing to the sensors and to the, I would say, almost getting to the AGI, the Industry 4.0 and Industry 5.0 is where I think, to me, I would like to dwell a little bit more. So the topic for the day is, maybe I'd like to read out so that I don't miss out the context of what I'm supposed to be talking. A smarter world, AI as the tool, Industry 5.0 as the path. Gen AI, AGI, large language models, large world models, large concept models have become almost a buzzwords. Well, not large world models, but maybe LLMs. But the Industry 5.0 counts on autonomous systems, which kind of almost goes to the extent of leveraging the large world models. But in any ways, taking a step back on Industry 4.0. Industry 4.0 was primarily automation, rapid / mass production. It was about deployment of robotics. Obviously, that means displacement of human workers. Mass production basically meant any small mistake or any small disruption could lead to a lot of wastage in the production, and that is how wastage was realized in the COVID time. Not fully integrated cyber physical worlds. That means the supply chain, the value chain was not completely integrated. It was not integrated from the vendor's vendor to customer's customer. It was either within the premises of an organization or a manufacturing shop floor, but it didn't go beyond that. AI was deployed, IoTs and sensors were deployed in a manufacturing. In fact, we specialize in big data and also providing the MES solutions and the AI solutions for the manufacturing. We built something called shop floor management systems, completely, not only, renovating the older machines, but also ensuring that we deploy the right level of manufacturing optimization systems fully integrated into, back into the ERP systems. That is what we do as our primary offering as well. But then during COVID time, we all probably could realize that when the supply chains got disrupted, a lot of companies struggled to get the supplies. They could not adapt to the manufacturing variation in the demands for the manufacturing. And that resulted in either a lot of inventories being held up at one point, either in the shop floor or at the retailer or at the vendor itself. And during that time, and subsequent to COVID also, sustainability, we all know, when you do mass manufacturing, what type of impact it could have on the sustainability. Ecological balance was being compromised. So a lot of, I would say, some of these challenges were addressed in Industry 5.0, but the biggest problem was around human displacement, job security. In India, a lot of companies currently are also operating at Industry 2.0, 3.0 level. They're not even at the Industry 4.0. So from that perspective, Industry 5.0 addresses these key challenges. One, human-centric approach to the manufacturing, completely integrated cyber physical systems, autonomous AI agents-driven production, not machine digital twins, but rather human digital twins. And that has resulted in three, I would say, large technology categories. One is the resilient production, that means personalized, flexible production that will minimize the wastage. Second, in the AI autonomous agents, so every manufacturing unit actually fully autonomous, whereas the human beings now can work with the machines to creatively think and do something that human beings are supposed to do, not just do the repetitive production. That means working with the cobots, right? That has become, and also for the design, research, development of the products, human beings are able to apply their minds. And the last one is the overall research and innovation has got accelerated through AI. Now, industry, where does the industry play a role in this? Industries in India especially have to adopt the technology. We're not adopting the technology fast enough. We're not skilling our workforce as good as, let's say, some other countries do. From that perspective, industries have to play a role in educating and not displacing the workers, but rather educating them and using so that we can scale up the operations and help increase the products to become more affordable so that we can drive the consumption more, increase the quality of life, and thereby not only securing the employment, but also make the products affordable so that the overall consumption goes up. That is how society can benefit at large. Governments need to help with the policy frameworks and probably also providing right infrastructure, either for the startups or even for the established industries to able to absorb Industry 5.0. From that perspective, I think to me, in fact, it was a pleasure to hear what Professor Murthy Garu said. And I very recently moved out of entity data and started my own startup. Now, when you said you have a place to offer to the startups, because we actually specialize, my own entire focus is on humanoid robotics and also Industry 5.0. And in fact, I do Industry 5.0 consulting for companies. So I'm, again, happy to be, to partner with, in fact, I consider a privilege to partner with IIT Hyderabad. And thanks for the opportunity, and I wish you all the best. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. I do believe that it's only when the industry and research come together hand in hand that we'll be able to proceed further and help the community. Moving on, I now warmly welcome on dais Ms. Valuri Kranti, an IIT Delhi alumna, IAS Collector and District Magistrate, Sangareddy District, Government of Telangana, for the inaugural address. Please, ma'am.
Professor B.S. Murthy, Director of IIT Hyderabad, Mr. Ramnath S. Mani, Co-Chair of Wheels Global Foundation, Professor B.J. Rao, Vice Chancellor, University of Hyderabad, Mr. Sanjeev Deshpande, Convener, CII Telangana, professors, students, and all the distinguished guests present here, a very warm good morning to one and all. I am Kranti. Being an alumna myself of IIT Delhi, I had attended several workshops sitting on the other side of the dais. So today it gives me immense pleasure delivering this inaugural address as Collector and District Magistrate of Sangareddy District, in which IIT Kandi is located. So as we discuss today's topic, artificial intelligence role in building a smarter world, we all are very much aware that artificial intelligence has already made deep inroads into our human lives, be it personalized suggestions offered on Netflix, Amazon, and e-commerce websites, be it curated newsfeed on social media like Instagram, X, etc., be it AI-powered navigation tools like Google Maps, fitness apps, etc. AI has become an integral part of our lives, and we are becoming more and more dependent on artificial intelligence. So I had to look up on Meta AI to gather some information for today's speech yesterday. So as we stand on the cusp of this technology revolution triggered by artificial intelligence, there is every need to ensure that the solutions being developed also cater to the people's problems. So as a IAS officer myself who has worked in field for 7 years so far, I have come across several instances where I felt that this problem could be solved by a smart solution. So since industry and academia are present here, I would like to narrate some of those problems to you. So there is a need to deliver quality education to the last mile. So during my field visits to several government schools, I have found that in a classroom there is a huge variation among learning levels of the students. Currently a one-size-fits-all approach is being given. Same textbook, same workbook, same teaching plan is being given to all the students. So there is a need to develop personalized teaching plans to the students so that students can be grouped based on their learning levels and the low-performing students can be focused upon more. Currently, some NGOs are working on the same front, like Indian Education Collective, with whom we have worked. We have given some of the remote schools for them to do this kind of initiative. But a smart solution which is scalable, which is affordable, will always help us to drive this initiative through the teachers in the schools so that the teachers get learning plans and teaching plans and they can implement them in the schools. Similarly, in the health sector, in the remote rural and tribal areas where the access to healthcare is limited, we often see people going to unskilled people for treatment and falling victims in their hands. So there is a need to develop affordable solutions which can be deployed at the village level, at the tribal habitation level, so that we have a network of health workers like ASHA, ANMs, who can be utilized to deploy this solution so that healthcare services can reach to the doorstep of the people. Similarly, in the farming sector, earlier I worked as collector and district magistrate of Joglamba Gadwal district, which is a district located 200 kilometers south of Hyderabad. So there I witnessed agony of farmers who have lost their commercial crops like chili, cotton to insect attack and pest attack. So there is a need to deploy solutions which can advise our farmers on the inputs which need to be given based on the soil health, microclimatic conditions, weather conditions, so that their risks are minimized and their profits can be maximized. Similarly, in my stint as Municipal Commissioner in Karimnagar city, which is the third fastest growing city in the state of Telangana, which is also a smart city selected under the Smart City Mission of Government of India. As Managing Director of the Smart City Corporation, I was tasked with the project to develop smart roads, smart stormwater drainage solutions, integrated command control center establishment, intelligent transportation systems, etc. So we had to collaborate with the industry and the academic institutions to develop these smart solutions to deliver good governance to the urban public. So under municipal administration, there are several verticals like sanitation, water supply, engineering like roads and electricity, town planning, greenery development, etc. Each and every vertical is very important to deliver good services to the public, and each and every vertical needs smart interventions. Suppose under sanitation, tons and tons of solid waste is being generated on a daily basis, and we need a scientific disposal system to ensure that the waste is segregated and recycled and reused. Similarly, liquid waste management. We have sewerage treatment plants to treat the sewage water getting into nalas and rivers, but we need to understand that STPs are very cost intensive. We need low-cost, affordable solutions. Even in Sangareddy district, we have some lakes where drainage water is directly without treatment getting into lakes, and there is urgent need to deploy low-cost solutions to treat this sewage water to prevent water pollution. IIT Hyderabad is kind enough to offer their support in this liquid waste management front. So under each and every municipal administration vertical, there is a need for smart solutions. Similarly, being a women officer myself, I also feel that AI solutions should be very inclusive in nature. We often see women workforce bearing the dual burden of taking up both domestic household work and also the office work. So there is a need to have smart homes and smart kitchens, so that with gender neutral technology, so that women workforce can make empowered choices in their career. I have seen many women using cleaning robots in the homes, and they're extremely happy for the technology because some of their burden is reduced. So it is about time we get automated cooking robots. Already some are available on Amazon, but we need to understand that food is a very culture specific and very personal thing, so which can cater to these cultural norms also. We need such kind of automated cooking robots. So similarly, even on the disability front, AI solutions have the potential to improve access to education and employment to the disability workforce. Recently, I had a meeting with all the disabled organizations in my district to understand their problems and to come up with solutions. So the hearing challenged people have requested to establish two-way interaction system in the government offices, so that they will be able to seamlessly converse with the officials to get their grievances reduced. So we are in need of a chatbot which can interpret the sign language and which will help in a two-way communication system. The visually challenged people have requested for a sound library so that they will be able to access the education and learning materials, which we are soon setting up using some AI-powered software and recording rooms, so that their access will be improved. So like this, the needs are many. So I request the industry and academia to take up AI research in these fields which require, which contribute to the social infrastructure of the country. So considering the impact of the transformative impact that AI has on human lives, even the state government of Telangana, led by Honorable Chief Minister Shri Revanth Reddy Garu and Honorable IT Minister Shri Sridhar Babu Garu, have decided to make Hyderabad as a global AI artificial intelligence hub. In September 2024, a global summit for artificial intelligence has been hosted in Hyderabad to bring experts and innovators from across countries onto the same platform to facilitate cross-learnings and collaborations. A roadmap for artificial intelligence is laid out by the government to make the Telangana government as the first government which is powered by artificial intelligence. And Hyderabad is also going to be a place where artificial intelligence solutions are going to be developed, or going to be tested, or going to be scaled up, and are going to be deployed. So we have an encouraging government, a government which is also thinking about upskilling the workforce, because artificial intelligence can have impact on routine and automated jobs. So we need to skill the workforce so that we create new jobs in the machine learning and artificial intelligence field. And the government which is interested in deploying artificial intelligence solutions. So recently, a flagship scheme of the government, which is Indiramma Inlu, which aims at providing affordable housing to the poor, was launched by the state government. And we were tasked with the project of identifying beneficiaries. So we had to take photographs of the current living conditions of the people, and machine learning tools were deployed to check whether the house is the roof, the wall type is in a particular category or not. Like, is it a mud roof or a thatched roof or a RCC roof, so that we arrive at a idea of the living condition of the person, so that which will help us in identifying the beneficiary under this scheme. So like this, government is very encouraging, and we have a very enthusiastic and active academia. We have IIT Hyderabad, NIT, IIIT, University of Hyderabad, who are willing to take up research in emerging technologies. And we have a very supporting industry who are willing to fund and deploy and scale up the technologies. So let us all work together to develop artificial intelligence solutions which are affordable, which are accessible, and which are inclusive in nature. Thank you.
Thank you so much, ma'am. As someone who is pursuing a PhD in artificial intelligence herself, I believe that the onus is on us that we come out as a provider for the less privileged rather than a competitor for the best of the minds. I now request Director IIT Hyderabad to kindly come forward for the felicitation of our special guests for the inaugural session, who gave not only their immense support, but also their valuable time to grace this event. Please. Along with this, we also have mementos from wheel side for each one of our special guests. Special mementos from Wheels Global. We also have in the audience Dr. Ram Ramanan, who would like to gift a book to the ITH director.
Professor, this is my very small token for the invention, innovation, and technology for humanity, Hyderabad.
We have a school of sustainability.
Thank you so much, sir. I now request Dr. Mudrika Khandelwal, former Dean ACR, IIT Hyderabad, to kindly extend a vote of thanks.
Thank you, everyone. Let me just start on my list of expressing gratitude. Let me start with Mr. Ratan, who couldn't be here because of health issues, who is the president of Wheels Global. But he's the one who initiated this effort when, during our tenure, when Professor Murthy and myself had online meeting with him, and we insisted that IIT Hyderabad should definitely have a satellite session here. So thank you for that. I want to thank again all the dignitaries on the dais. Ms. Kranti, IAS Collector Sangareddy, Mr. Sanjeev Deshpande, Convener ITDT Startup Panel, CII, Professor B.J. Rao, Vice Chancellor, University of Hyderabad. I'm sorry I've been chasing all of you, but thanks a lot for your time here and expressing all the thoughts that you have for the younger generation to take the world forward with the theme AI as the path and Industry 5.0 as the destination. Along with that, I really want to thank Anusha ji, who has been helping me to get people from CII coordinating closely. Thanks a lot. Finally, I'm meeting in person as well. Welcome to IIT Hyderabad. And Samiyuddin ji, who has also been helping from the CII side. I also want to thank Mr. Ramnath Mani again, who has been making effort from the Wheels side to coordinate and make this agenda possible for us. Few others who are right now not on the dais, but you will hear them during the rest of the day. I want to mention them. Dr. Rameshwar Bhargav, who is here with family, founder, chairman of Nanocrystal Magnetics and Nanotheranostics. We'll hear him next at 11 o'clock. Dr. Ram Ramanan will also hear him. He's the chair, Sustainability Council with Wheels. And I also want to mention that we are going to hear in the panels, there are two panels set out for the day, one on AI, other on Industry 5.0, where we are going to have speakers from academia and industry. So we are going to have Mr. Fani Mitra, who is the Chief Digital and Information Officer for Dr. Reddy's, Raghav Nukala, Vice President CIFAL, and Managing Director of Anant, Mr. Subbarao, Dr. Subbarao. So stay tuned. You're going to hear a lot of wisdom here from the stage. And bye for now. Please join us for the high tea. Thank you, everyone. Thank you so much.
We will now have a short tea break. Please proceed towards the ground floor of this building. There are pagodas outside the building, and we'll reconvene at 11 a.m. sharp. Thank you.
Welcome back, everyone. First announcement, anybody left this jacket here? In the tent? Okay. We'll just keep it safely in case you realize it is yours later. Right. So it is my immense pleasure to welcome you all back for our second session and the first keynote lecture for today. Those of you joined after the tea time, we are here at the satellite session of PIWOT, which is Pan IIT World of Technology, and the theme for today is a smart world, AI as the tool with Industry 5.0 as the path. So this session today, we are going to hear from Dr. Rameshwar Bhargav. And before I invite him here on the stage, I would like to do little justice maybe to the brief, as a brief introduction. Dr. Bhargav is the chairman and chief scientist of nanocrystal magnetics. He's also the founder, CEO, and principal investigator of nanotheranostics. Previous to that, he has worked with, as a research scientist with Bell Telephone Laboratory. He's worked with IBM and so on. He has several honors under his cap, but just to mention a few, he's a fellow of IEEE and American Physical Society. He was also the first organizer for the Gordon Conference, for those of you who know about it, on point and line defects in semiconductors in 1977. I will not read everything that I have with me, but I do want to mention his expertise in area of doped nanocrystalline materials, nanomagnetic materials, and so on, where he has made a pioneering contribution and made several technologies also possible. Without further delay, let me invite Dr. Bhargav onto the stage. We look forward to hearing from you and have a good discussion with him during the talk or after the talk. Thank you so much. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, Mudrika, and it's my pleasure to introduce you some of the technologies which will be worked on for next 30 years. It's a beginning, and let's see where we can land up. But just want to introduce that in 2023, one of my colleagues who worked for me 19 years, came from Russia. Why he joined me is a different story, but he won the Nobel Prize in chemistry for the discovery of quantum dots, which is the first paper written on nanotechnology. And that paper inspired me to get into, in fact, leave a very cushioned job at Philips to start working in nanotechnology. The dream, which started about 30 years ago, is just seemed to be getting me somewhere. And I want to share that. So let me first play the Nobel Prize, the comments basically, and I interviewed him. Alex, welcome to PIWOT 2025. I think everyone here will be interested in your journey leading to the Nobel Prize for the discovery of quantum dots.
Thank you, Ramesh, and also I would like to thank the organizers, especially Ratan Agrawal of Wheels, for the opportunity to address this meeting. Unfortunately, my health prevented me from attending this conference in person. Just a few words about myself. I graduated from school with a gold medal and continued my education in the physical faculty of St. Petersburg University. My scientific career started in the laboratory of Evgeny Fedorovich Gross at the YOFA Physical Institute of the Academy of Sciences of the USSR. My research specialty was in the field of optical spectroscopy of semiconductors. Our work was motivated by the studies of optical pumping in gases of Arthur Kastler, who was awarded the Nobel Prize in 1966. In contrast to his research, we focused on the phenomena in semiconductors. For our work in optical pumping and spin polarized electrons in semiconductors, we were awarded by prestigious state prize of Academy of Science of the USSR. The next area of our research was concentrated and about quantum confinement of electronic excitations in semiconductors. The flurry of Nobel Prizes in the field of optics in semiconductors attracted us to study confinement in small nanocrystal particles of semiconductors grown in the matters of glass, which were later termed quantum dots. This work was begun at Yofa Institute and then continued at Vavilov State Optical Institute. The theory of phase decomposition of oversaturated solid solution helped us to develop technology to control size of the nanoparticles, starting from a few nanometers. This makes it possible for us to investigate quantum confinement in semiconductor nanocrystals. Our initial publication described these results, sparked an explosion in interest all over the world. This afforded me the opportunity to work in various institutions around the world, like École Normale Polytechnique, Claude Bernard University, Lyon, France, Max Planck Institute, Germany, Sendai University, and Osaka University, Japan. In 1999, I moved to the United States in the Laboratory of Nanocrystal Technology, headed by Ramesh Bhargava. Fundamental investigation for quantum confinement to electronic excitation in zero-dimensional quantum dots paved the way for commercial application of these nanomaterials in high-definition television and the medical research using as biomicros. Myself, along with Professor Bruce of Columbia University and Professor Moudji Bavendi of MIT, were recipients of the 2023 Nobel Prize in Chemistry for the discovery and synthesis of quantum dots. My colleague from nanocrystal magnetics, Dr. Ramesh Bhargava, will briefly present new findings and further development of these studies of these materials in the area of magnetism.
That's okay. So let me begin where Alex worked, which was nominated and won the Nobel Prize. They worked on quantum dots. Quantum dots are small particles, and they have a special property that as you decrease the size of the particle, the color can change from red to blue. But it's an interesting thing because these quantum dots existed for thousands of years. If you look at any churches, old churches, the stained glass windows, you thought it's a different material. It's not, it's the same material, except processed at different temperature. So you can get from red to blue in the same glass. And that's the way he was able to correlate that this must be, since he measured the same fundamental property, so the size has to change. And that's the way the discovery was made. So in nature, many things exist, but unless we understand the nature that clearly, we don't discover the new things. So my discovery begins from quantum dots, but how I went from quantum dots to the next generation of systems, which I call permanent magnets or magnetic systems. So if you look at today, these applications of permanent magnets are in various energy sectors, but also the main thing is the electric vehicle, which is really driving it. And one of the biggest problems in permanent magnets is that you require very high, strong magnets, and they can be only coming from rare earth systems, which is completely controlled by China. And some of the amount is expressed there, but in the last thing, in the red, there's a application which is magnetic cooling. If we can do magnetic cooling, you have to understand the refrigeration and the air conditioning almost takes 30% of the world's total electricity. And it is a very archaic system. If we can make a solid state system, which is much more efficient and compact, it will save a huge amount of energy. So in the energy field, this is probably the toughest problem to solve, but at the end of the talk, I'll show you that the material we have made has a good chance to develop the first solid state air conditioner system or refrigeration system. Let me look at the major application. If you look at an electric car, it has only two major components, the battery and a DC motor. The DC motor is driven by the DC current generated by the battery, but that requires a very powerful magnet as a rotator. And these permanent magnets are significantly better than other magnets people are used to. And today, they are, wait, let me go, no, maybe. So basically these rare earth magnets, which are, I'll describe the process later, are controlled by China, and it's a highly toxic process. No other country in the world can achieve that purification and extraction of these rare earths. The strange part is the supply chain of these rare earth magnets is going to disappear because China will say, I don't want to give you. So if India wants to say that I want to develop electric vehicles, they have no chance because that's the key component. Of course, there are alternate solutions with other type of motors, but then you can't get more than 30 miles an hour or 50 kilometers an hour speed. And so there's a limitation. So this is a problem which we have to solve. And I'll later show you that we have the solution, and we are probably close to 6 months to a year away from showing that we have a better permanent magnet than China. That's my objective and goal, and that's what we are trying to do. So basically, on the left, Alex Akimov discovered the quantum dots, and the applications were basically luminescent biomarkers and Q.TV made by Samson, and he won the Nobel Prize in 2023. I worked on for almost 30 years, and the discovery I made was doping of these nanoparticles. Now, people don't understand doping, but I'll demonstrate later. The semiconductor industry is based on putting dopants in silicon, and that creates a transistor. And so basically, that's where my idea came. If I dope it, I can probably make very different properties in the material. And one of the materials happens to be that I can make it magnetic. But this one atom per nanoparticle begins to control the properties of that atom. So anyway, the applications are strong permanent magnets, electric vehicles, electromagnets, transformers, cell phone, drones, and it goes on. And I don't have
can't imagine what will happen 10 years from now, the applications of this, because the system, let me describe first what is happening in how I discovered it. If you take a single atom is in quantum mechanically is a sponge. It's not an electron going around, it's a sponge. So if you squeeze this sponge, it will become oblong. Once it becomes oblong, it polarizes the electric field and polarizes the magnetic field. It means the spins are in one direction. So I have modified the single atom in nanotechnology, but the nanotechnology has to be, the nanoparticle has to be less than 15 nanometer. 15 nanometer for you, I'll just tell you, a DNA diameter is about 3.2 nanometer. So I'm 5 times bigger than DNA diameter. So there's a lot of magic about these lengths. And 15 nanometer is a length where magnetic interaction can, one particle to another particle can interact extremely well. So I have to keep that length as a measure of my interaction. So this discovery was made in 1999, basically in late 1900s. Now, later we wanted to prove the concept that what I just told you, that electric polarization and magnetic polarization exists. So we did extensive work with Oak Ridge National Lab, and they were able to measure the light coming from this particle as well as the size at the same time. The size was measured by atomic force microscope, and the light was basically measured with a laser excitation and a microscope attached to it. So if you look at the picture, the light is coming out, but if you put 45 degrees polarizer, you can see that it is splits, means the light is polarized. If it is uniform, you put the polarizer, it won't change anything. So this proved to the point that a single atom, which normally emits light in all directions, now it's emitting only in one direction, has a polarization. That, according to laws of Maxwell's equations, which is then shows clearly the magnetic polarization should be there. So what we did, we took a nanoparticle which is, has all the spins random, and put an additional atom, one atom, and this atom became squashed and has a spin. Now if this spin of the atom is there, it puts 30,000 Gauss 100 degrees C or less. It's actually below the boiling water. We can do it at 100 degrees C or less. It's actually below the boiling water. I do it in water. It's completely green technology. And there's a fundamental parameter called Curie point, where the material changes from magnetic to non-magnetic. The rare earth is about 300 degrees C, we have over 500 C, but the main thing is the maximum operating temperature is 200 degrees C. So if you take an electric car and operate on a hot day in Rajasthan, you won't perform that well. It may not accelerate, and this is a very limiting factor for the current electric vehicles. And while we can easily reach 400 degrees C. So this is the key thing. But if I told you already that the process is highly toxic, and we are doing an aqueous phase in water. But one of the things is rare earth is a metal. So anytime you use rare earth outside, it gets oxidized. Particularly if you've seen this big windmill or generators, turbine generators, after a while they stop. The reason is that they oxidized and the magnetic property have decreased. Outside, the high temperature and moisture gives these magnets a very big problem. Ours is, we already begin with oxides which are inert, so nothing happens. So we are much more robust. But the key thing is, right now, the energy product, which is the definition of how much energy, magnetic energy is stored in these magnets, they have a number maximum for rare earths 60, and theoretically, people have demonstrated or written that we could have 120. But the way we have done it, we can easily go even much higher than that. So, summarizing this magnet or the permanent magnets, you need 15 nanometer particles, doped particles, and use that, and eventually we can succeed in doing. So I want to now go to the next phase of materials, which are basically enhanced performance of electromagnets and transformers by using doped ferrite nanomagnets. Transformers and electromagnets today are, particularly transformers, are have a very large market, and particularly for a country like India, where you need electrification, you need these transformers, and if they're very heavy or very large, it takes, on a pole sometimes they put these transformers, and you need a very heavy infrastructure. So the way we look at it, that if you make, just read the last line, if you make a composite of iron ore and our nanoparticle in the right way, you can improve the transformers significantly and electromagnets. And I want to continue so that people understand what we are doing. This is an electromagnet. Electromagnet is nothing but a big iron core with wire or electrical wire wound around to generate north and south pole. And the maximum field you can get today is 2 Tesla. And it heats up and all that, you have to have water cooling. If you take the same iron core and drill a hole and put our particle inside the hole, what happens is that the iron itself has a very large impedance. The flux doesn't move that easily. But if you put our particles in this hole, suddenly I have a very low impedance material. So all the field lines go through this and concentrate at the field where I need to. And this will help not only to develop more field, but more uniformity. So people who make MRI system, a magnetic resonance imaging system using electromagnets, they need high field and more uniformity. So I'm hoping, I'm working with a company in New York area where their stand-up MRI system can be working, become as good as the real MRI system. And this is our goal. Now, what are the advantages? Advantages are that it can become portable. Portable MRI system is a very significant impact on the health industry throughout, because it's one technique which can allow you to see early stages of cancer and other diseases. X-rays and CTs don't have that type of resolution or contrast. So in this case, we are looking at really a portable MRI system or MRI on wheels. But there are other applications of this material outside the permanent magnets, which are electric vehicles. In defense, they need also very high power permanent magnets. But in wind turbines, definitely at high temperature, if you go in these farms where there are wind turbines, you'll find 10-20% are not working because they're robust. Basically the magnets are not working. And that is going to make a difference. But if you look at electrical equipment, lightweight, a smaller transformer for efficient transmission is a major contribution one can make in this. Today, the transformers which are being used are basically they are, I will believe that they are antiquated because there is no new invention. But with using our particles, you can make a significant difference in the thing. So to show that, this is a slide from actually Los Alamos and Naval Research Lab. They're saying if you use nanocrystalline material, the size reduction could be 98% and loss reduction, which is the coal loss, could be very significant. And so all these transformers, which are the basis of all power stations, is going to change. And if you look at this is to support, there's only one company which makes the stand-up MRI system which does not use liquid helium and low temperature technology. And we can give them higher field, more informed field, and the size, which is still very big, maybe several tons, I can reduce to maybe 500 kilograms or almost make my portable system. So we are working towards that to have a portable MRI system. So in summary, we have developed a new concept of magnetic material, 15 nanometer, which has one extra dopant in it, which aligns the spin, which I call hard material, and then the soft material, and combination of that gives very good magnetic properties. We have a strong non-rare earth magnets for the first time, and we have obtained recently a patent on that. Now, this nanocomposite powder, which consists of hard and soft material, when you use it in electromagnets and transformers, and I'll describe the magnetic cooling a little bit to you, which is a major thing, can make a big difference in the current technology. These products, when developed in India, can make India both a global leader, but a manufacturer of magnetic devices can allow India to lead in the second electronic revolution. Now let me explain how this magnetic cooling works. Magnetic cooling is like if you have two types of material, but that it's hot, and then when you align it, it becomes, when it's hot and it's aligned, if you misalign it, it becomes cold, and you keep going through like corner cycle from hot and cold and alignment and disalignment, you can create cooling. And this is what happens in normal refrigeration system, that you compress the gas, expand the gas, compress the gas, and extract the heat in one case and a cool air in other case. So this field is open completely, but it is probably the most important field to handle the energy situation. Because if you can save 30% of the whole electricity is used for cooling. If you can save 50% of that, this makes a huge difference in the whole energy system. And then you don't have these toxic vapors for cooling systems. So my my summary in one way is that, yes, the first electronic revolution is there. The second electronic revolution is now at your doorsteps. One has to take it, and if India does it today, they'll be global leader in 5 to 10 years. And that is equal in value, but you'll save huge amount of energy and healthcare. I have not listed all the applications which can be possible, because that's a very difficult thing for me to do. So anyone wants to have any further information, they can definitely do it. And I have a little brochure if you want to read it. They can take it. So thank you, Mudrika, and thank you for listening.
You mentioned this Chinese toxic process. You mentioned the toxic process that's ongoing in China, which your process clearly, very superiorly handles it better. The question I have for you is that process not amenable, the one that is used by China, using some robotics?
No.
It's not.
It's robotics can only move, save few lives, right? But the gases, the toxic waste, they can't.
Okay.
I mean, it's like if you
No, but I was talking about the human exposure being
the human exposures, I'm sure
that's a context in which I was talking, yeah.
Yeah, but see, if you go to China where these factories are, miles and miles of mountain is brown. There's nothing, and they're dumping everything in ground. Yeah. Eventually that will land up into rivers. I mean, that's the biggest problem there. But they're not looking what is going to happen 100 years from now.
No, we don't want to make too many Chernobyl's.
Thank you, sir, for the wonderful talk and then pitching in for the second electronic thing. So I would like to ask you that this permanent magnets made of these rare earths, they have large BH, product, right? And it is coming due to the high anisotropy.
Right.
So what is in your material causing this high anisotropy so that you can get
that's what I was trying to explain. See, I take 20 nanometer particles and I have, say, 10 micron nanowire. So if you look at the anisotropy, it's 10 micron is 10,000 nanometer, and you divide by 20, it's 500. So compared to 5, I have 500. Because what it means that all the magnetic field is directed in only one line. It's like an arrow.
Okay. And this neodymium iron boron magnets we can create in kgs. So this 15 nanometer nanowire, if at all I want to kind of market and comparable to that.
No, I have to, there's nothing to do with the magnet. I have to produce 5,000 tons of this material and then package it as a magnet. See, one of the problems I have had, I can make the material. I'm trying to develop packaging of making different size magnets using things like 3D printing techniques and other new techniques, because I have these nanoparticles, I lay them down and then put a binder and get it done.
Thank you, sir.
Maybe one last question at the back. Maybe stand up and talk loudly.
It was great listening to the advantages. I'm just curious, like, what would be very interesting for you to expand in Hyderabad?
It's a difficult question for me. Maybe you can ask. I mean, let's face it. If you start making, people, I'm sure in IIT Hyderabad doing nanotechnology, if they focus the right way, they can have these type of materials, but even materials beyond what I have discovered. I'm just giving a projection that and once you have the material, devices come automatically. And you may not sometimes understand why this material is good, but as soon as you see the good properties, you can make devices. Now, the number of devices could be huge. I'm not, see, you have to understand 15 nanometer size particles is the same size where today the best chips are made. So if I have a magnetic chip of this size and an electronic chip, what are the sensors, what are the sensing properties? I don't know. You can make a Hall probe, you can look at, I mean, somebody said, suppose there are no satellites. How do you have GPS system working? So these Hall probes can be made such accuracy that you can measure the magnetic field at each point of the Earth, and that will give you the location of where you are. Because magnetic field in each point is different from other. So if you program it without the satellites, so the people are worried about in Star Wars that if the satellites are gone, your GPS is gone, so people can't even fly planes. So there are many applications open up. Depends on the sensitivity. Sensitivity is the key thing in these systems. Any other questions?
Of causing a magnetic, magnetic intelligence, you were talking about it, right? Sir, I want you to, can you elaborate what potential do you see it will have impact on our day-to-day tech we use in 5 or 10 years, like if we have any vision?
See, magnetic intelligence is see, people are talking about quantum computing. What is quantum computing? There's some entanglement between one device to another device, and this quantum entanglement is much easier with the spins than charge. So eventually, this quantum computing, which may supersede or may contribute to high level of artificial intelligence, is based on magnetic system, I believe, and people have not worked on it, but that's the way it will occur. The future is looks very cloudy, but once you get and start doing little work, then you can see the horizon. And I'm not working on that field. I'm trying to make the material and demonstrate that there's a new set of materials which are powerful enough to do that.
I would like you to stay for a minute. May I now invite our Dean Alumni and Corporate Relations, Professor Mahendra Kumar Madhavan, as well as Dean Sponsored Research and Consultancy, Professor Narhari Shastri, to kindly join the stage and felicitate our speaker for today. So you have already met him. I would like to introduce him also. I saw you coming, so I took the opportunity of inviting you without it. Professor Narhari Shastri is our Dean of Research and Sponsored Research. Yeah. Can you go to the center of the studio? I'm sure there are a lot of other questions as well for Professor Dr. Bhargav. He's available over the lunch, and kindly feel free to interact with him. The next session is a panel discussion moderated by Professor Abhinav Kumar from Electrical Engineering Department. He's here. He's also our faculty in charge for corporate relations, and he's also closely working with the Department of Artificial Intelligence. Thank you so much. Okay, we'll move on to the next session. As I mentioned before, this is a moderated panel discussion. I hand over the stage to Professor Abhinav to introduce our panelists and as well as the topic for today. Over to you, Abhinav.
you hear me? Okay, great. I think it's a bit too loud, so I'll try to be. Okay, sure. Right, okay, thank you. Thank you, Professor Mudrika, for introducing me. And thank you everyone for joining for this particular panel. We're going to have a panel on AI research and commercialization, a collaborative ecosystem. But as the title indicates, don't expect any fireworks. That also includes the panelists we have. We have a very diverse set of panel members. But even before inviting them on stage, maybe I'll put things on context. To give you a brief overview, for those of you who are not familiar about the AI department at IITH, please note we started in 2019, the Department of Artificial Intelligence in IIT Hyderabad. And since then, we have scaled up. We were the first ones to offer a BTech program in artificial intelligence in India. And I'm being told probably the third one globally. Already 2 batches have graduated and they're doing reasonably good in terms of all metrics that you typically think of, like placements, higher studies, research, publications. We also have a very fledgling master's and PhD program in the department. When we originally started the department, we had affiliated faculty members like me who belong to some other department, like I belong to electrical engineering. And then we had 30 odd folks like me who said, let's come together. And thanks to the director at that point of time who supported the initiative. And we as a virtual department, initiated it. But since then, we have moved the department from a virtual to a regular department. So now we have 5 faculty members, head of the department, dedicated to only AI. This is over and above the 30 affiliated faculty members, which has also increased over a period of time. So now overall, if you look at it, we have ballpark around 50 faculty across the institute. Some of them, majority of them affiliated with AI, but there are also people working in other departments in applied AI, let's say in chemical, in biotechnology, you name it, we will probably have an expert working in that domain, right? We also have a lot of funded projects, both from government agencies as well as from private entities like Google, Qualcomm. There are several grants the faculty and students have received over a period of time. But then this panel is not just about AI department at IITH. So without wasting any time, I'll start inviting the panel members on board. So maybe I'll request first Professor Sumona S. Chenapaya. He's a colleague of mine from Electrical Engineering Department. He's also an affiliated faculty member of AI. Professor Sumona received his BE in ECE from University of Mysore, MS in EE from Arizona State University, and then a PhD in ECE from University of Texas at Austin. He spent a few years in the industry. I think that includes some stint in Qualcomm. And then we have been privileged to have him as a colleague. He's a professor now in the Department of Electrical Engineering. And his core research interests are in the area of image processing, and application of machine learning also in the context of image and video quality. We have also collaborated in the past closely. We have jointly guided a student, so I know him pretty well. That's one of the reasons I requested him to be on the panel. It's always good to have some support when you are the moderator. So please welcome Professor Sumona on stage as one of the panelists. Please. Second, we have Fanimitra B. He is the Chief Digital Information Officer for Dr. Reddy's laboratory. In this role, he has global responsibility for digital transformation, process excellence, and information technology management for the organization. And he joined Dr. Reddy's in 2014, and played various roles, including setting up the Global Analytics Center of Excellence, leading corporate strategy and digital transformation for Dr. Reddy's India and emerging markets businesses. Before joining this, he has worked with HP for over 11 years, and in various roles again in strategy, in analytics and transformation, as well as consulting for customers across geographies, including US, India, and Asia Pacific. And Fani was listed in Analytics India magazine's 50 most influential AI leaders in India, and has also been awarded IDG's CIO 100. With that, as a very brief introduction, and also to add, he's a keynote speaker. He has been to various industry forums that include CII. That is how we got connected. So we have Anusha ji somewhere in the crowd, and thanks to her, we got connected and have his presence for this particular panel. And he holds a BE in engineering from BITS Pilani and an MBA from IIM Bangalore. So please welcome Fanimitra B. The third panel member we have is Mr. Raghav Nukala. Again, thanks to Anusha ji, I should acknowledge her support in this acknowledgement to CII. He is currently a VP of Customer Success and Digital Transformation and CPL, and then with an impressive 28 years of experience in consulting and industry. He has honed his leadership skills in driving high-performance teams to deliver effective business solutions to a diverse markets, including domestic, global, international markets. His career has been marked by successful establishment of practices and contributions to numerous implementations across 20 countries and several continents. He has a unique blend of business and technology expertise, frequently sharing his insights as speaker in leadership forums. That includes CIA's startup panel for Telangana region, where he's a part of. And in this capacity, he has provided guidance for various digital transformation initiatives to small and medium businesses and startups. His result-oriented approach has been evident in the way he has initiated complex outcomes, driven complex initiatives, and added value and achieved company goals and delivering effective solutions for success. And with a strong track record in both technical expertise and collaborative project management, he possesses a deep understanding of the intricacies of the system and would add that diversity to our panel. So we have somebody from academia, we have two folks from the industry, one from pharma, one from deep IT tech, I would like to believe. But then we also have one more panel member with us. We have Professor Anupam Joshi. So I would like to please welcome Professor Anupam Joshi. He's a professor of computer science and electrical engineering at University of Maryland, Baltimore County since 1998. He has been teaching mobile computing, security, social media, operating system at the graduate and the graduate level courses. He is the principal faculty member at UMBC's Ubiquity Research Group, a cohort of CSE faculty and students who explore the interaction between mobile and social computing, artificial intelligence, data analytics, security, and privacy. And his own research interests include intelligent network systems with a focus on mobile computing. Please note, Dr. Joshi's research has explored security, trust, and privacy from a declarative, policy-driven, and semantically rich approach. He has been working with NSF on the Secure and Trustworthy Cyberspace Program, SATC program, a 3-year project to investigate how to better manage security and privacy constraints while querying semantically annotated linked data. He has also worked in past with collaborations with MIT, University of Texas at Dallas, and he has explored how to detect and respond to attacks which are semantically rich in approaches to reason over sense security data streams, and exploring security and privacy issues in mobile computing, social media, and healthcare. With almost 30 years in academia, he has published, I think, more than 400 papers and obtained research support from a variety of agencies, both government and the US stage, like NSF, NIST, DARPA, DoD, as well as from industry like IBM, Microsoft, Qualcomm, Lockheed Martin, and all. He holds a PhD in computer science from Purdue University and a BTech from my own alma mater, IIT Delhi. So welcome, Professor Joshi, for this particular panel. A big round of applause for all the panelists first, even before we start. Maybe I will also take my seat at the far end. And so to begin with, in the order of the seats, maybe to just initiate the panel, a brief remark on what is your opinion or your perspective on AI when it comes to AI research and commercialization. So just maybe a 2 minutes thing, and then we'll delve deeper.
Thanks, Professor Abhinav, for having me, and good to represent the industry from the AI perspective. It's great to be here. When we look at AI, particularly in the context of pharma industry, Indian pharma is around $50 billion, growing significantly faster. A lot of work that we're doing primarily is in terms of how do you get the drugs faster to the market, and the drugs are increasingly becoming complex. And most of the Indian pharma is, the contribution is to the world, because as most of you know, 60% of vaccines, almost 40% of US generics, drugs come from India. So it's of significant importance both to the businesses as well as to the larger economy of the country. AI fundamentally for us falls in 4 different buckets in terms of what we do with AI in R&D, what we do with AI in our manufacturing operations in terms of efficiency, what we do, what can we do with AI in the commercialization space, in terms of taking products to the market and so on. But more importantly, and something that is close to many of us, is how can AI help with patient care and making the outcomes happen, and how can we go beyond the pill. So we've been looking at AI more holistically across each one of these 4 different blocks. It will be interesting to explore further, but I think I can wait to hear others as well. But I think the fundamental idea is, given the excitement from the way we started off, with the early machine learning spaces to the current generative AI, we've significantly leapfrogged in terms of what it can do to the business. Because one data point for the audience, for instance, is a significant chunk of a pharma life sciences operation is primarily in research, in terms of the ability to condense knowledge, apply it in the fastest possible way. And the second big chunk is, how do you prove and ensure from a regulatory perspective that you are able to articulate your science and data to the regulators in a way that they can understand and approve the products into the market. So in both these spaces, again, generative AI for us is an extremely exciting space. So
sure. Thank you. Thank you for those opening remarks. Fani, maybe over to Raghav. What is your take on AI and its commercialization and the ecosystem in general?
Thank you very much for having me here. Thinking of AI, I think it has been transforming our life way, way, way different from what we had envisaged. Like, so far we were thinking about a gradual progression, and I think AI is disrupting everything that we have been talking about. I'm specifically from the HR tech area, and in the HR tech, we have seen major differences in terms of, be it with, initially we thought OCR was great. Now actually trying to do those things and try to improvise things that are coming in, bridging the knowledge gaps, making things much more professional and consistent across the organizations, and improving productivities. These are the things that our customers have been asking for, and things have actually phenomenally changed, right? Even the way, like I was hearing about some keynote where people are thinking maybe even SaaS, which we thought is the savior of the world, is probably on the deathbed because of the pace at which you can build things and the way you can consume anything is actually going to change. I think we are up for a lot of things. And today I got exposed. I was thinking AI is the great thing, and now I think probably I need to spend time on magnetic intelligence too. This is something I was not aware of until I'm here. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, Raghav. And then over to Professor Joshi.
So you asked a very interesting question, and I'll say 2 things in response. First, I think for those in this audience that are AI old-timers, you'll recognize that there is, and again, I'm going to enter into trouble by essentially using terms like Mahayana and Hinayana, but the strong AI and weak AI, right? And so are we asking the question, how do we as humans think, perceive, act, right? Is mind the same as brain, right? Is the color yellow I am describing a direct correspondence to a certain frequency of the light spectrum or something else, right? So that's strong AI. But the way you framed the panel, I suspect you're thinking more on what used to be pejoratively called weak AI, which is getting a computer to do things as well or better than a human does, right? So in that, I think the part you asked about commercialization is this. Once it starts working, it's no longer AI, right? So these days, if you go through the customs and border control, I just signed up for the one in India, by the way. I don't know when they will approve my application. A camera takes your picture, recognizes you, and you are done. 10, 15, 20 years ago, sir, you're a computer vision person. That was a hard research challenge in computer vision. I remember having a discussion with some colleagues in the security establishment in India about 15 years ago now, where they wanted to know how we could, given video feeds in rallies, identify if some bad people were there. At that point, it was, sir, we need to do serious research. Today, you can do it, it works, and people don't think of that. You don't think of that as AI anymore, right? So I think that interesting commercialization channels is that, yes, this year the Nobel Prize was given to the people who figured out how to do protein folding using deep neural networks. 5 years from now, the pharma industry will be using it and we will not be calling it AI anymore. So AI commercialization is this interesting thing that once it is commercializable, you don't think of it as AI. Yes. Because AI is supposed to be this really hard thing that people work in research. So I think that's the framing that I would like to start with.
Very, very interesting thought, Professor Joshi. Over to Professor Sumona, maybe from a computer vision perspective, what is your opinion on the AI and commercialization?
Again, like Professor Joshi was just mentioning, I guess it's also a question of, what are the problems that we want to solve and what is it that we want to commercialize. And a slight maybe pivot, if I can, to this discussion is also when we start talking about commercialization, a lot of, say, cutting edge technologies in the past originated maybe in the academic world and perhaps as a, as a collaborative effort between the industry and the academic world. I'm just bringing in this because, trying to represent what we in the academics are seeing in terms of potential for commercialization coming from the academic world. So if you were to look at any of the more recent developments that have come out, right, they've all primarily originated in the industry. Say you look at what Google DeepMind has done, right? The Nobel Prize. In fact, the technology was originating in the industry itself and with obvious connotations for commercialization. So now the question also will perhaps be, what role does the academia have in commercialization of these technologies, and are we even equipped in this current climate to be able to look at commercialization of the work that we do? So those are some opening remarks from my side.
Sure. So maybe please hold on to the mic because you mentioned about these technologies that potentially we can try to commercialize. So maybe I'll give you an opportunity to further share more about, are there such technologies that IIT Hyderabad is working on from AI perspective, or anything specific that you'd like to pitch in terms of what are the key top 2, top 5 things we are doing as an institute in AI domain that potentially can be commercialized and,
Yes. So again, that's a good question that you ask, Abhinav. So one of the things that I would like to again bring about for further discussion here is explainability. A lot of today's technologies we're just embracing without really having a very deep understanding of why it does what it does, and that's where I guess perhaps the academic environment has because fundamentally we are trained to ask questions. Yes. And I guess that is where maybe if we are able to answer some of these questions effectively, that could in fact impact things like pharma. Because if we know why a molecule does what it does based on what the solution the AI has thrown at us, if we are able to explain why a particular bonding is the way it is, and can we explain it to the end user, that is, I guess, where one of the what would I say, pivots that we can have in this growingly commercial solutions that we are all dealing with. So say Google the GPT Copilot, right? Again, it's a solution that has come from the industry. But if we as academics can come in and say, this is why the model is suggesting this for this, say, text solution or for the pharma solution, that is, I think, where there is opportunity for academics to come up with solutions that could be commercialized.
Sure. So explainability is one thing you would like to pitch. Maybe over to Professor Joshi, what do you believe other than explainability is currently the hot cake in AI domain globally?
That's a very long list, right? What is hot in AI is a very long list. Let me start with an interesting anecdote, and I hope no one is here from DST or any of the funding agencies. But I was talking recently to a senior division director at the National Science Foundation in the US who said that a few years ago, without naming any names or any companies, that a representative who's a well-known academic that now works for one of the large AI-related companies was in the meeting of the National Science Board and said, why are you even funding this kind of research in universities anymore? Because they are so far behind where the industry is, right? So where the universities can make a difference besides looking at specific texts like explainability is, and I have two colleagues sitting in the audience today Ramana and Karuna, that both run industry university cooperative research centers at UMBC that are funded by the National Science Foundation and industry. So Ramana's group is looking at how can you figure out how brain actually does things, right? Can you implant things? I mean, Ramana's lab, if you visit it sometimes, he will show you how to control like exoskeletons using implants in your brain. No industry is doing it. There's no clear ROI, right? Industry is investing significantly in, for example, discovering new molecules because there is an ROI. But controlling prosthetics using brain, there's no obvious ROI. Karuna runs an IUCRC that does accelerated real-time analytics, and they're working on this interesting problem with NOAA, again, using very large-scale AI models. So how many of you saw the visuals of the Los Angeles wildfire? So it turns out that they do that kind of work, and if you're familiar with that work, it is a multi-scale, multi-physics problem. To get it right, you need to be simulating at the level of a single ember spark, that's a centimeter level resolution, all the way to hundreds of kilometers where the smoke and the fire can spread. That kind of multi-scale, multi-physics, you need a factor of like 100 or 1,000 improvement on the current compute power to make that happen, right? But AI can really help there because what you can do is you can take coarsely simulated models, right? And then do fine-grained predictions using AI. Again, I shouldn't say there's no ROI here. If you could have accurately predicted how the fire spreads, but it's not the kind of ROI that an industry will pay for, right? And that's where the other part where the academics still have a significant role to play. So if we just compete on the turf of the industry where the thing is immediately commercializable 3 to 5 years from now, Google doesn't need me to do it. Dr. Reddy's lab doesn't need me to do it because they will invest, they will hire my students and they will do it. But I don't know, sir, but maybe you will say differently, but if the problem is 5, 10, 15 years out, then I think that's where we have a role to play as academics in creating technologies that will be commercialized later.
Sure. Please.
So I think it's a very, very, very important point, Professor, that you made. One, in terms of the time horizon, that is interesting for us, and that's where certainly I see academia. There are 2 more areas that I would just nudge you to think about. Is one in terms of cross-functional, cross-discipline research, because a lot of times organizations struggle with a certain bit of a silo, and it takes a lot of effort for us organizationally to bring people together. The classic example of electrical department working with somebody else, or a chemical department working with somebody else. I don't know how complicated in the academic world is it as well, but the biggest impact that we are going to see is in that intersection of bits, atoms, and cells equivalent, right? In terms of biology, chemistry, materials, and then the AI and everything else. And to bring that kind of team together in a typical industry and to work on a problem that is a little far out is difficult for organizations to do. So that's the second area that we can think about and where academics can come in. And the third big one is where organizational collaboration becomes difficult. You're solving an industry problem, for example. It's very difficult to bring 2 competitors in to actually make it work. But if an academia is doing it, it's actually easier for us to put money into it because it's going to help everybody. But it's also in a way much easier to make it happen. So at least it's more of our wish list in that sense that when you have problems which are both cross-functional and cross-industry or at least in pan-industry kind of problems, I see a great opportunity for academia to play a role.
Sure. So maybe over to you, Raghav. Following through what Professor Joshi mentioned in terms of the ROI, are there instances where you guys are taking a call in the industry and investing in technology 5 years, 10 years down the line, or is it mostly about the bottom line that the product has to be launched in 6 months, maybe in the HR domain, and that's where the whole team has to focus?
Yeah, I think obviously it is going to be ROI driven. That is where I think academia is going to help. If I look at it, right, AI as a concept is probably developed by academia, and then the application has come from the industry. right? Probably, and if you think about AI, it's not a new concept. It started probably back in 1958. It is becoming applicable now because we are able to find many more use cases where we are able to use it. And basically, consumability of technology is where industry comes in picture, right? There's probably a lot of things out there. They're already invented. Maybe they're just waiting for a particular use case for industry to pick up on. At the end of the day, most of the industries that we work in, they are for-profit organizations. So the most sense made with any investment in technology is going to be based on the ROI, right? So that's where I think what I would say the initial spark, like the wildfire, it probably starts from the academia. The moment we see this spark, and that is when the industry catches up, and then it becomes, or the applicability increases multifold. That's how I look at it.
Sure. So maybe following on to that thought, so I see it as a chicken and egg problem, right? Because we have academicians who are working on long-term, high-impact problems, and we have people from the industry who are looking at these immediate product-oriented solutions. So what can we do better? What would be your take from the academia side, or how do you see we can foster this collaboration better to bridge this gap?
I think, again, I come from a business background, right? I think everything goes back to the money, right? The investments, right? Today, is industry willing to spend money in trying to invent new technologies? Probably not, because you don't know, maybe there are 1,000 things academicians try, maybe 2 of them are going to click. I think it's basically building that blood flow where the organizations are investing in research. A part of their income is invested in research so that the results of that would be given back to the industry. In my opinion, I think the investments of the businesses in academic research is probably going to be key for us to grow any technology and probably make it commercialized.
Sure. So maybe over to you, Professor Joshi. Any success stories of this kind where with the industry you have collaborated or your team has collaborated and it turned into a product or something, you know?
Sure. There are lots of stories, and I think what you really need is not just industry academia, but the third leg of the stool is government, right? So you need a virtuous collaboration between government as in its sort of funding arms, industry and academia. There are lots of successful models. I was just talking to Professor Murthy before coming to this panel where, you know, IIT Hyderabad, and you guys are probably better prepared to speak on it, has a thing where industry can give problems and a person will do their MTech thesis and, you know, which they have to do anyway on that problem with a co-supervision from the industry. So there are models like that we do all the time. There are models where you can go a step forward. So my university gave me permission to spend 2 years with IBM Research in India, right? So I was embedded in IBM Research. If you buy IBM's SPSS, well, IBM bought out SPSS around that time. If you have that product, some research I did on analyzing very large telecom graphs, which came because, okay, I don't want to name companies, a large Indian telecom provider was very interested in preventing customer churn in the prepaid segment. Anyone here has prepaid? Most of us have postpaid plans. Anyone here has prepaid? Okay, you have prepaid.
It's cheaper.
It is cheaper, and therefore there is huge customer churn in the prepaid segment. I'm not supposed to say that. So yes, there is huge customer churn in the prepaid segment because the person looks at the next offer and switches. And with MNP, you don't even have to bother about numbers, right? And there is a large segment of the population in India that doesn't care that their number is constant. So again, we're talking 2008, so a long time ago. We took it as a research challenge. I spent time in IBM Research. We came up with, at that time, extremely novel graph-based analytic algorithms. This thing won the Best Paper Award in EDBT, like one of the top conferences in an area. And it was in product, right, that IBM was selling. Around the same time, once you can figure out this kind of call graphs and networks, there were national security applications of that in India, where terrorists or criminals would put a gun to a guy's head and say, "Apna phone de," use that phone to make calls. And so whatever trace you had on their actual phone would be useless. But you can do this kind of graph analysis, right? So there are lots of successful models. I talked about this IUCRC. In US, the National Science Foundation actually gives money to the university as seed, but they have to raise all their money from, the problems come from industry. There is a standard template that the National Science Foundation provides, which is pre-competitive research so that the IP issues are sorted out. No institution can change it, no company can change it. And it's pre-competitive small research that is funded. And as soon as it produces something that the industry actually wants it, they execute a separate agreement with the university and take that out, right? But so there are lots of successful models. We could spend the next hour just talking about what they are. The problem is doing them at scale and incentivizing faculty, right? So if I look at how promotion and tenure happens in the US, I suspect there is no promotion in India. You are hired into the associate or the full professor role. What are the beans that are counted? How many papers did I publish? How many PhD students did I graduate? And what kind of grant money did I get? Nowhere does it say, and did you collaborate with the industry? Did you come? I mean, those are secondary concerns. So I think that incentivization is a bigger challenge.
I understand. Fair enough. So maybe over to you, Professor Sumana, because I'm aware you have been earlier Dean SRC. So in that role, you must have been exposed to a lot of these success stories. So what are the hurdles you see that the current, not necessarily IITH in particular, but IITs in general maybe are facing, and how can we enable it better to promote this kind of collaboration going forward?
Yeah, so again, that's a very important question, I would think. And to a large extent, I feel that since the IIT system has been around for a while, many of these so-called impediments, we do have workarounds or proper solutions to them. For example, we can pretty much very quickly get off, hit the ground running, so to say, with engagements like consulting. Right, you just sign maybe a couple of pieces of paper and then you're on your way. So in that sense, I guess we really don't have to reinvent the wheel per se. But then the question becomes, how do we get these things to multiply? We probably have very many success stories, but I guess we should probably take these success stories to really compound the impact of these successes. So one success should lead to multiple successes, and that's where I guess we probably have to have a better handshake with the industry, specifically so in the Indian context. And so that's what I think that we need to be doing. Maybe better showcasing, better maybe collaboration, better interaction, maybe have people come, like the panel that we have that you're organizing. We should have more such interactions. Just also, we get to know each other better. We get to hear the respective success stories. We get to know what is the deep tech that IITH specifically, for example, has. And that is, I guess, one of the ways forward.
Sure. So you mentioned showcase. So I'll use this as an opportunity to showcase and also align with Professor Joshi when he was mentioning earlier these kind of big grants which allow you to partner with industry. We have something similar called THAN on our campus. You guys are having a tour, at least some of them, you are having a tour to it post-lunch, where the government has invested, I think, around 100 crores in the space of autonomous navigation. And the mandate is that first 5 years, the government gives the money, but the next 5 years, THAN generates the money through industry partnership. So I think we are also moving in that direction. And then there are several initiatives, I think more on that post-lunch. I'll not eat into THAN's active slide deck. But that being said, maybe coming back to, Funny, what is your, so we do have another mic, please do share. So what is your take specifically from pharma side? Are there any specific stories of collaboration in Indian context between academia and pharmaceutical industry? And if possible in the domain of AI and ML, if not in general is also okay. Just so that we understand, are there any specific nuances? Because it's a very different industry in itself. So maybe your inputs on that.
Yeah, I think for a long time we've worked with industry primarily as internships, consulting engagements and things like that. I think that pipe is pretty mature now. We kind of know what to do with students coming in short term or in a medium term kind of context. So that anyway existed. The couple of other things, I think we talked about it. Many of us are now coming into the academia, just checking once again, because the quality of research has also been significantly shifting, at least from whatever I have been seeing in the last few years. Last month, some of us from Dr. Reddy's were in IIT Chennai, for instance, and looking around what's up with them. There are new models coming up. For example, the new cell gene therapy, one of the therapies called CAR-T, where it's a personalized medicine for, I skip all the details, but essentially, CAR-T research was very, very strong in IIT Bombay. It's actually one of the India's first CAR-T therapies is going to come in from some of the work that IIT Bombay had done along with the industry in some places. So there's significant examples coming out, particularly in the biotech, the ability to pick, the typical old chemical pharma entities has always been from the academia, particularly in the US. A lot of well-known drugs, in Israel, in US, have always come from, a great professor and a couple of students doing some work in very early stages. That also has been shifting primarily because of AI in the mix now, because a lot of, just for numbers, you look at around 5,000 to 10,000 molecules to figure out what goes into preclinical and clinical. And to get to preclinical, you almost are picking less than 30. And then to get to clinical, you pick 5 out of the 30, and then probably 1 or 2 hit the market if you're really good and you're lucky. So that with that kind of hit ratios, you would source from everywhere that you could get. So the the chemistry-based research, and now increasingly the biotech-based research is actually coming in from the hubs, hotspots like Boston, for instance, or a big chunk of that work is coming out of academia. We should ideally look at what can we do about that even here in India. And the elements that we talked about on policy, capital, academia, and the industry coming together is that intersection that we would actually find it. Particularly in terms of AI, I think we are still in the early stages. I don't think we can claim victory. We're way far behind in terms of fundamental research in AI as well. Like, for example, a lot of our own R&D work is in collaboration with MIT, Leeds University, and a bunch of people outside. Particularly because when you look at AI, where we have these foundational models like these GPTs and the standard models that pretty much OpenAI and others are doing, most of the help can come in from what I call as the domain models. Because when you look at transformer models, Molbert and things like that, between NVIDIA and a pharma company and a certain set of academia, is where there is actually a significant space for generating data sets, curating them. They're now publishing databases that you can actually pick and work with. There is significant work where academia can actually help the industry with what I call as domain modeling. It also falls into one of the archetypes that I was describing earlier. You can't force 2 or 3 companies to come together, but we would all love to invest in a place where you would actually help us create a data set that comes along in a space that all of us can then take it forward from. So I see the opportunities, one in terms of fundamental research in AI that actually pushes the models forward. The second is in terms of creating these domain-specific models, that can be for the, particularly, for the life sciences industry or for, materials and in some other places. And then, of course, the industry-specific or the organizational-specific models where most of our proprietary IP resides would always be inside the company, because that is where you're going to get competitive value from. That would never be outsourced. So I see that collaboration basically coming in these 3.
Definitely. So I think data set creation is something you highlighted, which we should probably collaborate on, and then try to generate some IP which can potentially reside with the company. But maybe are there such initiatives happening, Professor Sumona and Professor Joshi, in terms of data set creation? How are we collaborating? How better can we collaborate with the industry? How can we pitch to them that, hey, as an institute, we are pretty open, come to us, irrespective of the domain, whether it is pharma or it's human resource or security? How can we enable such data set creations? And are they already happening in our context?
Yes. Yes. One good example is the Bhashini project. That's, I think, one of the important members of IIT Madras. And there are also a number of industry players that have pitched in. And I guess that's a great example in the Indian context as well. So specifically when our languages are low resource, as we call them, and I could see examples in pharma also where you can draw parallels where data is hard to come by, right? So that is a good example of a homegrown initiative that's been successful, and of course an ongoing effort. So that's the one example I would like to cite. to say that, yes, that can be definitely done, and if it can be explored in other domains also, we can, use that perhaps as a template, or, build a template that's specific to, say, the pharma use case.
Sure. So, yes, please.
So if I can just add, it says PANIIT pivot there in big words, right? So I'll do the IIT privilege thing and talk about batches and stuff. So one example in life sciences where this is AI from many years ago was H. Ramesh, one batch my junior from IIT Delhi, who along with others created strand genomics that came out of IISc, right? So example of industries. And that's the thing we haven't talked about, of faculty going out and spinning out companies, right? Bhashini, my batchmate, Vivek Raghavan, was doing a lot of work in these kinds of foundational models. And then I really appreciate your comment about low resource languages, right? So the language I speak at home, well, with my mother mostly, now is Kumaoni. Any Kumaoni speakers here, right? Have you even heard? No.
Heard of. I've been in Uttarakhand for a lot of period of my life, so I'm aware.
I actually reached out to Manish Gupta, who is my senior, IIT Delhi, who runs Google's DeepMind stuff in India, and I was trying to see, because they're building language models for a lot of Indian languages, and they said they don't have enough data in Kumaoni to even seed sort of that LLM. So I'm trying to figure out how to get enough data. So there are things like that. I think you raised some very appropriate points there, so I just wanted to add to that.
Sure. So I think you also mentioned about startups coming out of academia, and I think in the morning also session there was mentioned by Professor Murthy, where we have a lot of startups coming from IIT Hyderabad in particular. But maybe over to you, Raghav. What is your take in terms of collaboration? Is it easier for bigger giants to collaborate with faculty, or is it easier for them to collaborate with startups, maybe which are championed by faculty? Which mode of collaboration is easier for you guys to manage?
I think it's both, right? It's going to be more or less how the compatibility is. I think it's basically the use case match is what is going to matter. I think both of these scenarios are going to be great ways to collaborate. Startups coming from the academia and at the same time directly collaborating with them. Both of them are great models that seems to be working in the market. And I think I see there is huge difference in the Indian market where these startups are encouraged, and the thought of startup has actually, the entry barriers to business have changed. I think that the economic environment has changed significantly, and that is what I believe is fostering these collaborations. I see multiple, right, not only those, and even corporate to corporate collaborations. We have seen so many cases where large organizations are actually investing in startups to make sure they incubate them, and because those are, it's high risk areas, they want to actually separate out and have them handled. And I was part of, I visited T-Hub where we see a lot of those things happening, where multiple industries coming up together and collaborating, and in the end, something good happens.
Sure. So maybe one more follow-up query from my side, Raghav, because we have folks from academia who are, let's say, working on these advanced stage models in AI and ML, and then we have, let's say, domain expertise folks who are working in a specific industry. For example, you mentioned HR, we also have funding from pharma. But from an IT industry perspective, where do you see IT industry contributing to this ecosystem? Because in some sense, we already have the models coming from the academia, right? And then we have these domain expertise coming from respective industries. So where do you see the Indian IT industry in particular? How can they be a part of this ecosystem, and where do they contribute? In what capacity?
That's a great question, right? The moment we started talking about AI building code, and we started thinking, hey, the IT organizations are going to crumble. But what is happening is, let us say I'm a domain expert. I know how to write prompts in English. I can generate code. Next what? How do I make sure that code is going to go into your mobile device or into an application where things are going to work? How do I make it available to someone across the globe to consume it, right? In my opinion, that IT industry is still going to be that foundation. You need the foundation no matter how beautiful the walls are, and that is one. And two, at some point of time, I see when AI is fully mature, it's not going to be much different from probably any programming language. Now the only way we are communicating with is a natural language, and then we are talking about prompt engineering, but end of the day, like I started with Fortran and some of those languages where the code made no sense. When COBOL came in, we said, man, this is great. We can understand what the code is, right? And the same thing, that is the kind of difference we have seen with the classic AI versus Gen AI. In Gen AI, things are making sense, and actually it's easier for us to interact with applications. So, but end of the day, for all of those things to work, we need that backbone. In my opinion, IT industry is going to be that backbone. No matter where the technology is, I think you need a way to deploy the code. You need a way to make for these things to keep working across the globe.
Sure. So we have that backbone. Please go ahead.
I think you asked a very important question, and I think you heard a very important element of the answer. What I'd like to add, because I think this is so important, is the following, right? The core technology will need to be, what you call it is almost immaterial, whether it's the IT industry or this, whether Dr. Reddy's lab creates a whole division inside itself that is what would normally have been an IT company, or there's a separate IT. So I'll give you the analogy in the following way, and I'll commit heresy for my own discipline, computer science. So in AI, when I'm teaching a machine learning course, I will get into, for example, what is a maximum margin classifier? The number of people that need to understand the mathematics behind what is a maximum margin classifier in future is going to be relatively small. Similarly, when I'm covering knowledge representation and reasoning, I talk about epistemologies and the philosophical this thing of whether the logic should be bimodal or so in the Indian logic systems, for example, the Jain system, it's a 7-valued logic, right? Well, there's a universe of people relatively small that will need to know it. There is a much larger universe of people that will know, oh, someone has developed an ontology, I need to stick it into the system and run a first-order reasoner or whatever other on top of it. Or someone has developed a new machine learning approach. I don't need to understand its mathematics. I need to understand how it works and what to do with it. So that applied part, whether it's an industry on its own or absorbed, and in future thinking of academia, whether computer science departments grow or they become like maths, a relatively small department, and every department begins to do computer science, right? That's, I think, something that we'll see what the future brings.
Sure. A very interesting take by Professor Joshi on that, but maybe taking the thought forward and over to you, Funny, because in pharma, we see a lot of regulations, right? So we also talked about previously about data set generation. But how easy it would be for somebody to, let's say, collaborate with pharma industry, and how receptive are you guys when it comes to such joint researches? Because there's a lot of compliance, right? So can we still have a lot of joint AI-based research while remaining, maintaining those regulations and being compliant with those regulations?
So actually, it's a very, very interesting challenge that you have talked about. But as I said, I think in the core pharma or the life sciences part of it, industry-academia collaboration has been fairly sorted in the sense pretty much that is how it works. Like I said, fundamental chemistry, fundamental work around molecules and so on, etc. is taken care of. When it comes to AI and when it comes to sharing the data sets that we own with the outside world is a little bit of a challenge today for primarily two reasons. I think we talked about the overall aspect of it, but security, for instance, in terms of role-based access and control, there are a lot of these things that have not been fully solved in AI. So our own adoption of AI is coming in with a lot of resistance today, because I just can't have models just go in and learn everything and everybody in the organization sees everything. It doesn't work like that. So for us, between privacy, security, role-based access, and explainability, of course, comes in, but at some point in time, these take over, the precedence is higher for these things than even explainability, because I'm okay with 5 people understanding how it works, or even if they don't understand, I trust them, but I'm not okay with having a bunch of people accessing and just asking, via just a chat prompt, say what was the deficiency that we've got in this, because that's most competitive intelligence. So I think the long answer, but the direct answer to your question is there are certain data sets that we are absolutely okay to share with the academia. We do that all the time. We do that even with the companies that work with us, because most of the startups who are wanting to build AI with us, the main concern is would they build a product out of it, that essentially has taken your competitive intelligence out, or would they build it on a more fundamental level, which is more abstracted and thematic like that. So the data sets can be de-identified, shared, but I think the main challenge that we see with the academia particularly is the consistency of research, right? And that's where what Professor Joshi was talking about is very critical. Is the biggest challenge we see with partnering now is the interests change, the priorities change, and it doesn't work for industry if somebody is not holding on to it for at least a reasonable amount of time, because that problem is very important to me, but not as important to you. And it is at the fundamental, at the heart of how collaboration happens. If you're going to be invested, I'm going to be invested, and we're going to get there together over the next 5 years, that works. But if it's a one-term project, two-term projects, then it's not going to work, because you'll only get so far in 3 to 6 months. By the time you understood what the industry wants, it's 6 months, and then you moved on. So I think I have failed experiences with academia, or at least I probably am answering a very different question. But my experiences are one in terms of consistency of engagement on a problem that is fundamental to us as a business, not for today, but for the next 3 to 5 years, because I can give you that time. And that way it's a little out there. These two conditions will essentially allow us to actually invest and stay consistent. So many of our academic partnerships, particularly out of Cambridge, now increasingly with MIT, are actually in that direction, because we are very interested in peptides now. The whole world is interested in peptides now. There's a lot of work that we can do in peptides. We know that in the next 10 years, this is what it's going to be. So anything that you do around peptides here, would be of interest. Anything that you do with, AI security, risk, role-based access, explainable AI, or a responsible AI overall as a framework, and how you would put in enough controls or governance frameworks, great space. So I can rattle off 10, 15 areas that we would be interested in, but consistency and alignment to our long-term objectives is probably what it is. Then we can share all that we can share, right? Because we give tons of data to McKinsey's and BCG's of the world just by signing an NDA, and we pay them quite a bit. So there's no reason why we shouldn't.
So I think that your frustration in the academic collaboration is pretty evident, and I think we should be doing more on the academic side so that it doesn't happen. I don't think I can necessarily solve the structural problem, but before I asked Sumana to talk, I wanted to give a plug. I can go on about role-based attribute-based access control for a long time, but I won't. But in UMBC, in the CARTA IUCRC, for example, the compliance part around security and privacy is huge, right? Including in AI. And so this is also a place where I can actually help. So there's wonderful research being done with support from both the National Science Foundation, Department of Defense, and some industry on automating compliance enforcement. In other words, I give you my data and I give you the set of rules that you must respect, and the operating system directly enforces it, right? So what is being done is, and it's an interesting combination of research, interdisciplinary. So at a very low level, the kernel, level events are being trapped by something called eBPF. I don't know if anyone here is familiar with that technology. It's pretty standard in Linux kernel distributions today. Most people don't know about it, they don't use it. But you can trap eBPF level events. You develop an entire ontology on what is permission, on what are called modal logics, deontics or modal logics, permissions, prohibitions, obligations, dispensations. You write your access control using modal logics, and then you enforce it using either a description logic subset or a full first order logic reasoner. So your data comes with the rules, and the operating system enforces those rules on the data. So there's wonderful research that's happening right now.
So, yes. Yep. Very nice, very astute observations, I would say, Fanigaru. So looking at it from the positive side, from at least from the IITH perspective, I would like to submit, if I may use that word, that we do have policies in place that encourage long-term engagements. To give you just two very specific examples, we have a couple of academic programs that are geared towards, or designed, I would say, towards long-term engagement. One is what we call an MTech research option, wherein suppose that the two of us get together, we identify a problem that requires, say, 2 to 3 years of in-depth work, right? So what we could do is that we define the problem statement, we agree upon the problem statement, and then you say that, okay, look, since this is important to us, we are going to support you and maybe 1 or 2 students for a duration of 3 years. And this can all be done, in discussion, in collaboration, of course. That is a 3-year opportunity that we have created for our students to work specifically on longer term problems. And this, naturally, kind of organically also evolves into a PhD program that, again, we define the problem statement together. That obviously is going to be a win-win. And we have a dedicated PhD scholar or PhD scholars that are going to spend, say, 5 years of their time on a longer term problem. So just wanted to, share that we do have such, I would say, systems in place that would encourage longer term engagements.
So maybe I would also request Professor Sumana to add to that line of thought, because there was a mention about consistency and then compliance. So what about in terms of compliance, in terms of the NDA, in terms of IP, do we also have that ecosystem available in IIT Hyderabad? And I'm just wearing the moderator's hat. I'm not going to answer it for us. So maybe if you can add in that direction.
Yes, yeah. Thanks for that gentle nudge. Yes, we do have policies in place that will definitely respect your requirements. So that is definitely also in place.
Sure. So maybe adding to the previous, there was a mention by Raghav about these, ever-evolving skill sets that we're having, and we also have some students in the audience. And in general, AI is a buzzword now. Every second AI course you're floating in a university, we have 200 plus students registering. But then you also come from the other end of the spectrum. You are helping folks recruit, students. So what are the technologies within the AI space that you would like to maybe share with us? That these are the technologies people are focusing on now, and this is something that maybe students should invest next 6 months or probably this semester. I'm not sure how many are familiar. We have a fractal academics, so students can enroll in 1 credit courses also. So are there courses we should be floating for in the next 2 to 3 months, and what are those technologies we should be targeting for the student's perspective?
Again, when I put my business hat, I think the focus should be more on the domain, right? What I would say, what AI is coming into picture, it is making technology easily consumable, right? Earlier, like I go back to my Fortran days, reading that code took some specific skill, and to make something work, it took a specific skill and a lot of work. Now, those things are so simplified. In my opinion, it is getting the right domain knowledge, understanding the right business problem, and probably the way we are able to interact with the computer systems has become so simpler. It's just the mastering the prompts. So in my opinion, I think we need to pick the domains which has the most problems, like we talk about energy sector, pharma sector. I think understanding the business to the core, in my opinion, is probably going to be more important. At some point of time, like I think you mentioned, technology is going to be there everywhere, meaning everybody is going to be a technical person, because it does not need to be very technical to use technology, is how I look at. That is how I see AI is transforming the world.
Sure. Maybe adding to that, please go ahead.
So that's such a wise thing to say, and if there are students here, please listen to this, right? What was just said. So the joke amongst so I think, as I was mentioned in the introduction, I also have an affiliate appointment at IIT Delhi in the School of IT and Computer Science. And the joke amongst my faculty colleagues is that when you do PhD interview, there is one interview for AI, like one panel, and one panel for everything else in computer science. Because every student that shows up, even at a PhD level, is saying, I want to do AI. The problem is, middle school kids can run PyTorch. So if your entire contribution is going to be, I will run, a deep network transformer model, blah, 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 you're competing with a middle schooler, right? The HR person is not going to give you a higher package because if your skill set, so the skill set is domain, right? So I was just describing some work we are doing on those security things. The skill set there is for the person to be able to trap the kernel and get data out of the kernel that they feed into an LLM. Yes, we are also using an LLM to predict system call sequences to detect when violations are happening, but everyone can run an LLM. I mean, not everyone, but most everyone, right? So if your students here, if you're doing an AI-related work, build your knowledge in some domain. Understand what proteins are, understand what peptides was a word you heard, understand what peptides are, take a chemistry course, because then Dr. Reddy's lab will give you a premium in hiring because you understand peptides and you know how to run AI foundation models. If you just know how to run AI foundation models, middle schoolers can do it.
Absolutely. Sure. So following through on that thought, is that please
to add to what Professor Joshi was mentioning, also we are not there yet where we can fully trust what these models are going to give us. So unless you have the domain knowledge, like Raghav Garu was mentioning, you cannot verify, right? We are at least not at that stage yet where we blindly put our trust in these models. Yeah, sorry,
Sure,
I interrupted.
I just wanted to quote Charlie Munger, people who know Berkshire Hathaway and somebody who Warren Buffett respects, right? And one of the main points that he makes is this element on cross-functional or cross-disciplinary research and cross-disciplinary understanding. I think many of the students sometimes, one is, like Professor mentioned, a deep expertise in at least one or two core areas that they understand the bits, leave the bits out of it, but the cells and the atoms part of it in some form, right? That you get something in chemistry, something in physics, something in mechanical, whatever, right? And then add a layer on top. But this cross-disciplinary thinking, both in terms of logic as well as analytically able to solve, if I have to solve this large problem, because the biggest challenge we have in the industry is go around and ask, give me a problem statement, and you would get some really vague things, because they're describing problem in their own words on what they're seeing. But students who actually do well for us are people who are able to break this into something more logical and say, can I solve this for now, and would that help you? And the ability to logically figure out what is important. So it is about analytical thinking, as well as the ability to apply logic to actually thinking about problems and breaking them into what's more important. I think that's also a fundamental skill that we see kids who come in and differentiate themselves actually do that better apart from the domain, right?
So maybe adding or summarizing what Raghav mentioned about domain expertise, and then Professor Joshi mentioned that you need not only have a PyTorch skill set, you need to build upon it. You need to have some sort of expertise about the area you are working on, but then how can we ensure is this kind of a setup available to all students? Because it's very easy for some student to go online and use a 8-core virtual machine, but the moment we transform into sets of the kind like we use in pharma, we need huge amount of resources. Now those resources, even at an institutional level, are not so readily available because there are clusters. Each institute, IIT Hyderabad also has a lot of compute clusters, same for any other university, right? But then those clusters also are not, let's say, available to a first-year undergrad. Maybe a subset of it, maybe they can get 8 cores. How can we make this resource distributed more equitably? How can we ensure it is more accessible? At least in the university environment, for example, circling back to our original topic, if you want to promote this collaboration of research between academia and industry in the domain of AI, are there initiatives where the industry can come forward to provide more such compute resources, which can potentially be, increasing accessibility? Because only then this marination of domain expertise and skill set can happen. Because I don't think in the domain of AI, only one works. It's a must to have the domain expertise, but you also need to get your hand dirty. You need to run the models, you need to fine tune them, figure out the hyperparameters and all. So how do we ensure accessibility? Maybe as a closing remark on that, and how to promote this accessibility, and how can industry and academia collaborate to promote this accessibility in AI research? And in the reverse order, because I started in this fashion. So maybe starting with you, Professor Sumana, maybe your take on this, and then we'll circle around and try to have last couple of minutes for Q&A. Please.
Yeah, I think that's, again, a great point that you bring about, Professor Abhinav. And I guess this is something, again, where it's kind of like a crucible where the two, the academics and the industry should come together and maybe have, shared resources in terms of maybe sponsoring some hours, say maybe on these clusters where the industry defines the problem, the talent that we have in our academic, in the academics that we all have, say at places like IITs, they come in, they embrace a problem, they use the resources, and they essentially are solving it for the industry. So I guess that is where I guess we should maybe get together and look at even accelerated mechanisms for making this happen. So this can happen at multiple levels, but a short answer would be this.
Sure, sure.
So yeah, I concur with what Professor Suhana said, but to add on, right, certainly it'd be great if Dr. Reddy's lab sponsors a 800 node GPU cluster here. Maybe I'm giving them ideas. But the other part is that you can, as a student, you can learn to slowly scale out, right? So many modern laptops come with, some GPU computes, right? So Dell just announced they've rebranded stuff. I don't know if there are any Dell representatives here. Dell just rebranded a bunch of things. Dell Pro and Max or whatever. So we are a Sarkari institute in the US, and we have to buy Dell machines. So we know them well. And most of them are coming with built-in GPUs now, right? And certainly they're coming up with, with multi-core CPUs. So as a student, you can first start with smaller problems, with smaller data sets that will work on your laptop. Then hopefully industry is providing something, or at the institute level you have something. And this is a part that I think we need to emphasize. So in the US, it's just started. NSF has created this thing called the NAIR, National AI Research. I forget what the other R is. But the idea is that the government is investing in like these huge clusters, and then academics can write proposals to say, for my students to teach this class, I need, this kind of compute resource, and they parcel them out. But also a lot of corporates are doing it, right? So I think those credits are available to Indian institutions as well. Azure will give you credits, Amazon will give you credits, Google Compute will give you credits. So most of the big cloud players are also giving you. So I think the systems are slowly coming online to do that.
Sure. So while the question was on compute resources, me being a startup, probably I would actually stay away from talking about the resources you're looking for. But there is a second area where the industry can contribute is the knowledge, right? So primarily there is one, we're talking about technical resources, and there is other which is business resources, right? So this is where actually tapping in and collaborating on specific business problems, be it internship, be it actually the collaborative sessions like this, I think they can go a long way in making sure the domain problems are like people get to know deep understanding of those domains. So that is the kind of resource where I think we also need to look into. And then the other piece I would look at is basically like when we say, hey, we have the business experience, can we do our own research? Why do we need to depend on academia? The biggest problem is people who are in the business, we are not looking at one problem, we are actually looking at 100 problems. So while we understand and acknowledge the existence of a problem, many a times focus on that problem alone is going to be the biggest challenge. Like maybe you just looked at that problem, you spent 30 minutes on it, but it may be a 1-year problem to solve, and it just gets piled up. So that is where I think this collaboration can help focus on that specific problem and find a solution to it. So that is how I think that collaboration is going to help us in getting things done. That's my take on it.
Yeah, I probably have a slightly controversial take on this one. So because I don't think, resources, at least my personal view on this is resources are not a constraint for people solving problems today. I fully agree with Dr. Anupam saying this. One of the main things you're seeing is, for anybody who is solving a problem, there is enough and more available. This was true a few decades ago on the old story of Steve Jobs calling, Bill Hewlett and asking for, oscillators, if you remember the story of it. If you need something, you call the right person and ask for it, you will get it. And the beautiful part about times where we are as a country today, if you have a great problem that you want to solve, if you're passionate about it, you can call people and you would get resources. I personally don't think resources are a constraint. And the other way to look at it is the same set of people coming out of the same institutions are raising millions of dollars just outside the campus. There are people putting money on them. There's no reason why you would not get the money for it. I think the biggest idea to think about is if every professor or every counselor is saying, will this idea become a startup idea by itself? What's the beautiful thing about US universities I totally love about is many of the startups are more or less nudged by the professors. They guided them, they just got out and started something. So if everyone in the academia is actually looking at, or at least majority of them are looking at, am I working with a student or on my idea which can be a potential startup tomorrow because it's solving a problem. The definition of startup is it's solving a problem that others are probably ignoring or not seeing it. Then I think there is a ton of resources available, the Google credits, the AWS credits, Azure credits. We as corporates get it, so I'm sure academics get it too. It's in that sense, there's a lot available out there. I think we just have to look at, are we solving the right problem and can this be a startup idea? And the definition is that it has the potential to raise money because it's an important enough problem to solve, then I think there is enough and more resources going around in the country.
That's
a great perspective.
Very interesting perspective. So maybe with that, I'll quickly open the house. We can take a couple of questions, maybe one or two, and then please go ahead. At the back, can somebody bring them the microphone? Yeah, you don't have to shout. You're pretty audible. Go ahead.
Especially like Mr. Furnace sir and Professor Joshi, if you can comment, it would be great.
So maybe to paraphrase and make it more controversial, do they even need us? Or is there enough resource available online to train them in the ML domain and become useful resources?
For what? Right? So I think if it's just I think the question as phrased, becoming executives in companies, right? I mean, so it depends on what you mean by an executive. So in India, the fellow who comes to fill out my HDFC bank form is also called an executive, right? That person doesn't need me in any way, shape, or form. But if by that you mean, becoming a senior executive in a Reddy Labs or a Google or whatever, I let Funny answer that question. I think academics is very important, but obviously I'm biased there.
No, I think it's 100% important to be here, because for one, and my personal view, and maybe not speaking for Dr. Reddy's in this, is the whole element of the foundational understanding or the thinking of what is education, and it's a very deep topic that we can get to. But the fundamental understanding of how do you learn, how do you understand a new area, and how do you build on that is a very, very fundamental element. Working against a timeline, working with a certain set of work ethic. The bunch of things that colleges teach us. While I love tech, I'm not still a big fan of the education, distance learnings and stuff like that. I still believe classrooms have a lot of value. But the other most important thing is primarily on the ability to do cross-functional work is a lot more here. So if for the students, if you are in a particular department, I would strongly urge them to go across and do a project with another department. Go and work with math department if you're in CS. Some of them you always have, but go and work with a chemistry or a physics department. That opportunity reduces as you go into academia, into industry, because you have a job to do. You got paid for something. So you 9 to 5, that's what you're swiping in, swiping out for. It becomes extremely difficult. So this fundamental, if you people who have built great understanding of fundamentals here are going to shine better. There's no way anybody can become a senior executive without, at least not unless you're like Zuckerberg or something.
Thank you, Fanny, and thank you, Professor Joshi, for that. Maybe one last question, and please.
What is government doing, or is government of India in the process of planning or making any policies with regards to the applications? Now that more and more applications are coming out in the market that use AI or OpenAI APIs, is government already in the process of making policies around it, or is government planning to?
Yes, that's a great question, and the answer to that is an emphatic yes. And in fact, the head of the AI department, Professor Ganesh Ghalme, he is a part of the task force. So in coming up with an official policy on how we start to embrace these AI systems, what are the guardrails we're supposed to have, what is it that we have to ensure, in terms of trustability, explainability, and ethical, components to all of this? Yes, definitely, yes. And I would, encourage you to speak to Professor Ganesh if you are interested in. In fact, he's one of the original authors, the initial authors, I would say, of this policy document. Yes. So we have in-house expertise in this.
All right. Thanks so much.
Thank you. So in interest of time, maybe let's all of us thank the panel members. And I request our Dean, Professor MKM, to please kindly come on the stage and facilitate all of them. A small token of gratitude from our side.
Can we also have a round of applause for our moderator who did an excellent job?
Thank you.
I am in no shape or form related to this discussion because I am a civil structural engineer, but it was truly enlightening to see all these discussions going on. I find myself enthused about the things that are happening, and so much great discussions, very thought-provoking, and it kept me engaged for almost more than an hour. And I find myself very difficult to cut the conversation, but the lunch is waiting for all of us. So thank you so much again, and let's give them a round of applause.
Maybe one quick group picture, and then.
And for Professor Abhinav Kumar, who has shared the discussion throughout.
Thank you.
The special memento from Wheels Group.
Thank you. So, yes, please. Maybe a group picture. Can we come in front and then. So I also encourage all of you to please join us for lunch and interact with the panel members. I think it's the same venue where we had tea, Professor MKM. Same venue as the tea? Yes. Maybe.
So now the program will be followed with a lunch, and after that we will have a panel discussion too that concerns the second part of our caption, Industry 5.0 as Path. So looking forward to see you all in that discussion.